Alex here with a legal nuts and bolts video on due process. Due process is a monstrous legal principle in the legal system of the United States anyway, and it is so huge that there's no way I could possibly cover the colossal wealth of case law that exists on it in all 50 states and at the federal level. What I will do, because so many people bring it up and talk about it, is glaze over it a little bit um, and maybe come up with some examples that help people understand the gist of how it works. The first thing I'm going to say is that if you understand the purpose behind due process, it's easier to sort of connect it to all of the other moving parts. The point of due process is to, number one, let you know that somebody is trying to take something from you, whether it's your custodial rights, whether it's your property, whether it's your freedom by putting you in jail. You have a right to know if somebody is trying to take something from you, whether it's the government or a person, and you have the right to participate in a process that allows you to oppose the efforts of whatever it is the other person is trying to do. That's all it is. It's the right to know and the right to participate. Everything flows from those two basic ideas. A lot of people think that due process is more specific than it really is. One common misconception is that due process is your right to a trial. That's not true. You're entitled to a trial sometimes. Sorry. Well, actually, wait, what I meant to say was, okay. What I meant to say was that you're entitled to a jury. And what I meant to say is that's not true. You're only entitled to a jury sometimes. But I'm actually right by what I accidentally said as well. Some people think they're entitled to a trial. And that's not necessarily true either, because there are certain mechanisms in place that allow the court to dismiss a case before a trial. So I was accidentally right when I first went into that whole tangent, but I'm right in both senses. You are not always entitled to a jury trial. And sometimes you're not even entitled to a trial at all. And there are reasons that make sense behind why. When it comes to jury trials, watch my video on jury trials. When it comes to why you might not be entitled to a trial, watch my videos on, I have 3 videos. I have one on failure to state a claim, I have one on summary judgment, and I have one on judgment on the pleadings. It sounds bad to say that, but when you watch those videos and you listen to the reason behind why a person might not be entitled to a trial, it makes sense. For example, in failure to state a claim, if a person states a claim against you that there is no relief under the law for, why should you be dragged through a trial? Their claims, even if true, don't entitle them to anything. It's a complete waste of time. It's frustrating for some people because they want due process to be more than what it actually is, and it's just not. Another common misconception is people think that with due process you're entitled to an opportunity to go in front of the judge and speak to the court. That's not true. You are entitled to be heard by the court, but that could include the court hearing you by reading your papers and pleadings that you filed. The court reviewing your filed papers is, in effect, hearing you. You are getting due process. Just because you want to demand to speak in front of the court doesn't mean that you're going to get that right. There's the reasons as to why a person might get a jury trial are based on different constitutional principles, not connected to due process. A lot of times people conflate the two. You do have these other rights, but they're based on different things. Also, certain legal principles are rooted in due process. For example, service of process. There's all kinds of rules associated with how a person is served. And those rules are in the court rules and the statutes of the states and in the case law. Well, those rules are connected to due process because the part of the process of you being served papers is basically you being told somebody's trying to take your stuff. whether it's your liberty or your property or your kids, your parental rights or whatever. Another really good example would be, I'm not sure if that would be it. What I was going to say was service by publication, but that is kind of a type of service process anyway. The point is, you're being told somebody's trying to take your stuff. It's just a different way that you're being told. You're being told by putting your information in the newspaper. I'm not sure that there's really a whole lot that I can mention when it comes to due process without getting too technical and getting so far off track. I really, at this point, think I'm going to have to let people do their own research. I hope that I have kind of pointed people in the right direction. You would have due process claims in a case where you just had no way of knowing that somebody was trying to take something from you, or no realistic way to participate in a process. And I think that's where some of the principles that I brought up in the video intervention come into play. I know I talk about this a little bit in my video, Right to Know Where a Child Resides, because in that video, there were due process concerns because my ex was able to get a fictitious address that's available to victims of domestic violence. She was able to get this fictitious address. It's from the Nevada Secretary of State's Confidential Address Program by filing an application with the Secretary of State. And I wasn't able to basically get involved in that process because it's not like a lawsuit. You just take an application, you fill it out, you sign it, and you mail it in. The Secretary of State reads it, much like a job application, and they just respond to you. So me, the adverse party, the other parent, now doesn't get to know where his child resides. And I didn't have access to that process. So that was a due process. That's a great example of a due process concern that I was able to bring up. If you watch the video, Right to Know Where a Child Resides, you'll see how I dealt with it. And you'll see how the Supreme Court of Nevada created a process because they published a case named after me. And the case doesn't say I necessarily win right then and there. In fact, quite the contrary. The case creates a procedure or a process. And at the very bottom, they mentioned that I, Falcone, can use this new process that they've just created. That's basically them creating due process for me and for all the other parents who need to use it after me. Since it's a published case, any other parent in Nevada can use it now. I hope, again, I've already mentioned this, I really hope it makes sense. I'm doing the best that I can. If you really need to learn more about due process, definitely look into your state's case law, because that's where you're going to find the nitty-gritty, all the nooks and crannies as to how your state has dealt with it in the past. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and have to end this video. I will see you guys next time.